Hi there, welcome to this another session on programming for analytics using R. So today is going to be the session 5 of this particular video program, and we are going to deal with vectors in R. So one interesting thing I want to tell you in this particular session is, if you want to get the lecture notes on this particular session, please don't hesitate to ask. Put down your email ID in the comment box and I will send you the lecture notes of this particular session. So let's not waste our time. Let's get going now. Now, before I start this session, I'm going to tell you one interesting fact. I have already told you one interesting fact in the previous session. So another interesting fact in R, today's fact is you can install R Studio on your pen drive. Now, did you know this? You can do this. How do you want to do this? You can just go and Google it out and find out. And if you have any interesting thing to say, you can always put in the comment section of this particular video. So now let's get into the R Studio and see how to define vectors in R. Okay, my R Studio is now loaded. So before I actually start vectors, I want to give you one small information, and that information is how to get help in R. So it's very important for us as a programmer to get a help on a particular function or a particular process in R. Now in this case, I'm going to show you how to get a help on a particular function. So in order to get a help on a particular function, you have to make use of the help function itself. So how do I use a help function? So I'll say help, and within brackets I'm going to give the name of the function, ls. So you know what ls function is? Ls function is basically used to retrieve the variables which I have created in R. So now if I run this particular piece of code, now you can see that it is giving me an error saying that HLEP is not found. There's a small typo there. So just make it as help and give it as ls. So now when I run this, you can see that you are going to get the complete help on this particular function called ls. So like this, you can make use of any other function and you can get a help on that particular function. So let's say I want say help on rm. Now rm is a function which is used to remove the objects from the environment. So you can hit on this run. So it will give you the help on the rm. So you can say remove objects from a specified environment. So like this, you can actually get help on a particular function using R, using the help function. There's another way of getting an help on a particular function. You can also use a question mark and you can type in the name of the function like ls. So when you run this, you can still get the help on that particular function. So this is one way where you can make use of either a question mark followed by the function name, or you can use a help function itself and you can give the name of the function within the help as an argument and you can get the help on that particular function. So it's a very important thing which you need to know because we'll be using this quite often when we are writing programs. Now in the last class we were talking about objects. We all know what an object is. A variable is an object in R and we defined various kinds of objects. Today I will teach you the concepts of vectors in R. So what exactly you mean by a vector? A vector is also an object. So any object is called as a vector object. There are two types of vector objects. One is a vector object which can be atomic in nature. That means it can hold only one value, or a vector object which can hold multiple values. Let me demonstrate that to you with an example. Suppose if I say a and I'm going to give a value called 10. Now you know that a is an object which is actually holding a value called as 10. So now this a is called as an atomic vector. Why it is called an atomic vector? Because it is only holding one value. So if I want to print the value of a, you can just print the value of a using a print function. So when I run this, you can see that the value of a will be printed. Great. Now suppose if I want the value of a to have multiple number of values, so I would rather say that I would want to have sequence of values to a. So how do you are going to do it? You cannot say something like this. I cannot say I'm not going to assign a in this particular fraction. I cannot say a 10, 20, 30. Now if I try and run this particular piece of code, so you see what happens, it gives me an error. So in this case, I cannot have multiple values of A. I am trying to initialize 10, 20 and 30 to A, which is not allowed in R. But there is a way to do this. So in order to add multiple values to A, then you have to make use of a function called C function. That C function is called as a combine function. Let's see how to implement that particular C function now. I can say A is equal to C of, that is combine the values of 10, 20, 30 and store it in a variable object called as A. So now when you run this particular piece of code and when I try to print the value of A, so I'm running this piece of code, I'm trying to print the value of A. Now you can see that 10, 20 and 30 are actually stored in a variable object called as A. Now in this case, I can call A as an multi-valued vector. Why it is called as a multi-value vector? Because of the only reason that A has got multiple values. So there are two types of vectors you have learned. One is an atomic vector, a vector which can hold only one value, or you can have a multi-valued vector where a particular object can hold multiple values. Now when you are creating a multi-valued vector, you can have different data types inside your multi-valued vector. So let me create a vector of a cricketer name and a cricketer score. For example, I'll say name is equal to, I will use the combine operator. So I'll say Sachin is the name of a cricketer and say he has scored 100, and I will take one more cricketer by name Virat and he has scored 80. Okay, now when I run this particular piece of code along with the print statement, that is I am going to print this particular object. So first let me create this object and print this object. Now you can see that you're getting the output as Sachin 100 and Virat as 80. Now one thing you need to understand here is it is giving codes even for 100. So I'm curious to know what kind of object is this, or this object belongs to which class. That is the name object what you have created belongs to which class. So I'm very curious to know about that. So how do I do that? I'll say print class of name. So when I say print class of name, so when I run this, you can see that it belongs to a class called as a character class. See, though you have given numerical values and character values inside that particular object called as name, it belongs to a character class. So this is one thing which you need to understand when you actually create a multi-valued vector. So what is a multi-valued vector? A multi-valued vector is a vector which can have multiple values. Now let me make some small modification to this particular multi-valued object called as name. So what I can do, I can create another combination of values here. I can say C of the average of both Sachin and Virat, something like 34.7 and say 56. So here what I'm trying to do is I am creating the average of Sachin and Virat. So let me run this piece of code. I'll print the name. So you can see that 34.7 and 56 are also coming in that particular object called as name. So that means you can have combination of values within a combination. That is what I'm trying to tell you in this particular example. So now you understood what is the actual intention of using an atomic vector and what is the intention of using an multi-valued vector in R. Now, the one more important thing I want to tell you in this particular session is in programming, sometimes you would require to create an sequence. Now, sequence is also very important and you need to know how to create a sequence in R. So what exactly is a sequence? Sequence is nothing but group of numbers or a list of numbers, and sometimes we are going to use sequence in conjunction with vectors. So I will give you a simple example of a sequence. So I'll say sequence 1, now that is my object. Now I'll say 1:3. Now what does this mean? I am creating a sequence which will consist of values from 1 to 3. So let me first execute this particular sequence. Now you can already see that sequence on the environmental tab here. So you have 1, 2 and 3. So 3 numbers have been automatically initialized to the sequence called as 1. Now I can print the value of sequence 1. Now when I print the value of sequence 1, it is going to give me the answer as 1, 2 and 3. So you can actually generate numbers like this in a sequence. Now again, the sequence is also a vector object. So how do I know the class of this particular sequence 1 which I have created? So you can simply say print class of sequence 1. Now we'll see what output I'm getting. I'm going to get it as an integer sequence. So what does it mean? It says that all the numbers are of integer numbers. So this is one thing which you need to understand when you are actually creating a sequence in R. Now you can also create a sequence which can have decremental values. So reverse values. So I can always say sequence 1 and I can say something like 3:1. So when I run this and when I print the value of sequence 1, now you can see what happens. It is actually giving me in the reverse order. So you can create sequences like this and you can make use of the sequences in the vector object. So far you have understood what is an atomic vector and what is a multi-valued vector. So in a multi-valued vector you can have number of values, and remember, whatever values you give in a multi-valued vector can be heterogeneous in nature. So for example, in the name you have seen that it consists of Sachin, 100 and Virat. So it consists of character as well as it consists of numerical values. So that is one striking difference between an atomic vector and a multi-valued vector. Now suppose sometimes I want to basically sort a multi-valued vector, which is very important to me because I need to arrange the values of a multi-valued vector in a particular order. So how do I do it? So in order to understand this, let us take an example. I'll just create another list of cricketers now and then see how to sort it. So what I'll do is I'll make a list called cricket, a multi-valued list called cricket, and I'm going to give the names of 3 cricketers. Say for example Rahul, then Sachin, then I have one more cricketer by name say Dhoni, and I'll also have another cricketer by name Pant. Okay, now these are some cricketer names here. So I'm going to run this. So my cricket multi-valued vector is created. Now when I say print cricket, so what happens? You get all the names. Great. Now I want to sort it. So what is the meaning of sorted? Arranging it in a particular order. So what I can do now, I can use this function called sort and I can pass this object called as cricket. Okay, now what is happening here is I am using a function called sort and I am passing this object called as cricket. So when I execute this, you can see that this particular cricket object is sorted in a particular order. So here you can see Dhoni, Pant, Rahul and Sachin. So how do I do it in ascending order or a descending order? You need to understand the functionality of this sort. So let us first go to help and see what sort function has in offering to us. So when I run this, so you are getting the sorting functionality here. So here you are seeing decreasing is equal to false. So there is one option called decreasing is equal to false. When I say decreasing is equal to false, it means that it is not in the descending order, it is in the ascending order. Okay, now what will happen if I say decreasing is equal to true? So when I say decreasing is equal to true, so I'll say sort cricket decreasing is equal to true. So when I say decreasing is equal to true, now you can see that it is sorting as Sachin, Rahul, Pant and Dhoni. So like this you can basically control the sort and you can either sort it either in the ascending order or you can sort it in the descending order. So these are some of the things what you need to know about vectors, like how you create an atomic vector and how you create a multi-valued vector. And one more important thing is you can access the individual elements of an vector. That is also very important. For example, suppose if I say print cricket. If I say print cricket, what you can see all the names which I have given in the multi-valued vector. Suppose if I want the first element, so I can use a subscript like how you do it in arrays in C. So I'll say print cricket of 1. So 1 is the subscript here. So when I run this, it will only give me Rahul. So what is the meaning of 1 here? It is giving me the first element of that particular multi-valued vector called as cricket. So suppose if I want multiple values, so what I can do, I can say print cricket. Then within this, I can say C of, you have to use the combination operator 1 comma 3. So C of 1 comma 3. That means I want the first element and the third element. So now it is giving me the first element and the third element. So you have to use the combination function here. Only when I use the combination function, I can make use of 1 comma 3. So like this, I can create an atomic vector and I can also create an multi-valued vector in R. So thank you so much for watching this particular session. I will see you in my next session. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.